Just at noon today, the State Department of Hawaiian Homelands is getting a large grant from the Biden-Harris administration to help expand internet access and digital literacy. A news conference just wrapped up. Our Dylan Ancheta joins us now with a recap. Dylan.
Thank you so much, Ashley. This grant totals $72 million, and that money will be used to bring high-speed internet access to some of the most rural communities across the island chain, like communities on Molokai, for example. Now, new infrastructure will come from the funds. To break it down, officials said more than $26 million will go to deploying fiber optic lines to Hawaiian homestead communities. Nearly $15.5 million will be invested to build community digital innovation centers for workforce development and digital literacy courses. By increasing access to high-speed internet, leaders are hopeful communities can see new benefits like access to online medical care, career and job opportunities, and new opportunities for education.
Coming out of the struggles of the pandemic, we realize connectivity and reliable internet is not just something that is nice to have, but it's a necessity, whether it is for online learning, whether it is for opportunity from work from home. But in rural communities, even healthcare access depends on reliable internet.
The project goes beyond merely laying fiber to the homes. It's about connecting people, closing gaps, and opening new doors for opportunity for Indigenous communities. For too long, Indigenous communities have been on the wrong side of the digital divide.
Towers will also be managed to ensure connection remains, and the DHHL also hopes to create new positions to better serve the community in understanding the transition to this new technology. Now, this funding is all a part of a $3 billion federal program that aims to serve Indigenous communities throughout the country under the Biden-Harris administration's Internet for All initiative. Dylan Ancheta, Hawaii News Now.
Thank you, Dylan. The trial of a babysitter charged with manslaughter for the death of an infant nearly 6 years ago continued today. Dixie Villa is accused of giving 7-month-old Abigail Lobish a fatal dose of Benadryl in 2019 at the Aliamanu Military Reservation. Now, on the stand today is Dr. Paul Aiken, a physician at Kapi'olani Medical Center who specializes in pediatric emergency management.
I mean, there's just usually a different section in the pharmacy, and you'll see it on the packaging. For instance, if I'm looking at this children's Benadryl here, it says ages 6 to 11.
Okay. So out of all of the medicines that are in Exhibit R that you were shown, both on the screen and in the exhibit packet, are any of them recommended for anyone under the age of 2?
No, not to my knowledge. I didn't look at every page of Exhibit R, but not to my knowledge, no.
The autopsy says baby Abigail died from diphenhydramine toxicity. Villa's attorney has suggested the drug could have been ingested through breast milk or before the baby was in Villa's care. The recent discovery of ancient remains during a septic system project on Kauai is highlighting a statewide problem with cesspool conversions. Mahealani Richardson spoke with the new State House Speaker, who says there is a clash of policies.
I don't believe there is any such thing as inadvertent. That has to be changed.
At a recent meeting, community members met face-to-face with state and county officials about the discovery of at least 8 iwi kupuna in Wainiha, Kauai. It happened during mandatory conversions of 3 cesspools with 3 leach fields at the Halemakai cottages. House Speaker Nadine Nakamura of Kauai attended the meeting.
So this is sort of a clash of policies. And I think the recognition from the Department of Health and the Department of Land and Natural Resources that we need to have better processes in place.
Under state law, all cesspools must be converted to septic systems or connected to a sewer line by 2050. Nakamura helped come up with proposed legislation for a cesspool pollution fee, but that measure didn't pass. She lives in Kapa'a and has a cesspool herself. The costs to convert are steep.
We're hearing anything from $25,000 to $85,000, depending on the topography, depending on the availability of materials and labor. There's just depends on the site conditions.
The state says there are roughly 83,000 cesspools that release roughly 50 million gallons of raw sewage into the groundwater and ocean every day.
There's no easy solution, but I think a recognition that disturbance of the EV kupuna is such an important concern, respecting the remains that have been there far before development of housing on these lands.
The construction of septic systems are exempted from certain permits because they're considered renovations. But now Kauai County is reviewing that.
I've asked staff and our attorney's office to review whether or not septic systems really should be exempted from renovations.
And that was Mahealani Richardson reporting. Now, last month, Kauai announced that 100 recipients were awarded a $20,000 grant reimbursement to upgrade existing cesspools. On Maui, a surfer who lost part of his leg after he was bitten by a shark less than 2 weeks ago says he can't wait to get back in the water. Kenji Nonaka was surfing Dawn Patrol with his friends at a spot known as Sand Piles at Wai'ehu Beach Park. Now, after he was bitten, the 61-year-old was able to catch a wave back to shore. His friends used a surfboard leash to tie a tourniquet around his leg to stop the bleeding.
It was a different yell. And then I see him, splashing around. All of a sudden, I see the water turn red. I guess
that's why I still alive. I'm lucky. Yeah, I'm grateful. Because my friend big helped me.
Kenji lost most of his right leg from the knee down. Now that surgery is done, he's working hard to recover. If you want to help him, you can look for his fundraising link on our website, hawaiinewsnow.com. A man is hospitalized in critical condition after he was pulled from the waters off Oahu's north shore. The 29-year-old was part of a snorkeling group off Three Tables Beach yesterday afternoon. Officials tell us there were some large waves at the time, and the man became separated from the others sometime before 3:30 p.m. Rescue crews from HFD and Ocean Safety looked for the man in the water and from the air and were able to bring him to shore about an hour later. EMS then rushed him to the hospital. 2 other snorkelers also needed to be rescued from the water, but they did not need to go to the hospital. Meanwhile, a Kailua-based dive company is vowing to improve safety after a group of divers got swept away from their tour boat. Eddie Dowd has insight from a former employee.
It's this video of 5 scuba divers in distress off Hawaii Kai Wednesday that has Aaron's Dive Shop reviewing its protocols. The company tells us the trouble began with a last-minute change in the dive site made by the captain and dive leader.
I was shocked, honestly.
Aaron Nicholas worked for the company for 2 years leading dives in the same area. He believes Wednesday's group switched to a more difficult one.
It's a shallow dive, 30 to 40 feet, and you would just go around there, go to this little Buddha statue and come back. And the other one is roughly 90 feet. So if you're not as proficient, they don't generally take you out there. At least when I was working there, it can get really currenty. It was very evident.
The group was adrift for 2 hours before a passing sailboat called the Coast Guard for help. On Monday, the Coast Guard confirms Aaron's Dive Shop only reported the incident after the sailboat put the call out on the emergency channel. Federal law requires that when someone goes missing, an operator needs to notify the nearest authorities without delay. This boat captain at Kewalo Basin says it's sometimes a difficult call when divers are involved.
I don't have the details, but that captain may not have known, how long those people were under the water. You want to make sure you have an emergency. The Coast Guard has a lot of resources, and, if they start that process, it is a big deal, and you want to make sure you have a real problem on you.
Scuba dive operators we talked to here at Kewalo Basin Harbor did not want to go on camera, but one thing they told us is they run into people who have their scuba certification but are rusty and not really prepared to go out in the water. In Hawaii, those certifications do not expire, but scuba operators tell us they screen people by asking them how long it's been since their last dive, among other questions. but Nicholas says it's ultimately up to the captain and instructor.
Anytime we were there and we had people that weren't capable of doing anything, something slightly more risky, we're like, nope, we're going for the safety.
Aaron's Diving Shop says it's working with its dive and boat staff to prevent similar incidents in the future. And it's working with its certifying agency to improve its protocols and training.
This is not a defining moment. This is a learning moment for this company.
And happy Tuesday, everybody. High surf is in the forecast over the next couple of days. I want to walk you through some of the numbers in our surf and shoreline forecast. You can see right there, north-facing shores around 8 to 12 feet, west-facing shores 6 to 8 feet out there. And these numbers are going to continue to rise. This is for this afternoon. We've got an even larger swell approaching late tonight into early tomorrow morning. South-facing shores will remain relatively small. East-facing shores a little bit choppy. Those will continue to grow throughout this week as well. You can see in our swell forecast as we're going into late tonight, you're going to start to see that bigger swell above high surf criteria, high surf advisory criteria, potentially even high surf warning is going to start approaching throughout late tonight into Wednesday. It's over here on Oahu. We're going to start to see a larger surf over Maui County and the Big Island as we're going into Wednesday. I'll give you a further breakdown of this island by island in my full forecast coming up. We'll also discuss the breezy trade winds we're expecting throughout the rest of this week.
The president-elect is moving quickly to put together his new administration. I'm Christian Benavides in West Palm Beach, Florida, where his team is working on who will fill what roles.
Also ahead on this is now a missing Marine who was killed in the Vietnam War is finally laid to rest. How scientists in Hawaii helped his family. President-elect Donald Trump has not made a public appearance since last week's election, but he has been busy working at his Florida estate as he prepares to shift America's foreign policy. Christian Benavides has more details from West Palm Beach, Florida.
President-elect Donald Trump is previewing his priorities in the new administration with the announcement of his first cabinet picks.
Lots to do. We know the clock is ticking, but I think we'll hit the ground running.
On the foreign policy front, Trump's chosen Congressman Mike Waltz for National Security Advisor. The first Green Beret to serve in Congress has echoed Trump's complaints about the war in Ukraine.
Let's end this war in Ukraine. Let's pivot to deal with China. Let's secure our border.
Florida Senator Marco Rubio will also help shape foreign policy as Trump's expected pick for Secretary of State.
How close is this country to being dragged into some sort of global conflict? We now have troops from North Korea side by side with Russians on the ground in Ukraine.
Trump also announced he's picked former Governor Mike Huckabee to serve as ambassador to Israel, demonstrating his commitment to Benjamin Netanyahu's government, even as it fights the war in Gaza.
For Trump, foreign policy begins at the border, and the first people he's named to his administration have been tasked with a southern border crackdown and deporting millions of undocumented immigrants.
South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem is Trump's choice to head the Department of Homeland Security. DHS includes Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs officials.
Make no mistake, an invasion of our country is happening, and our border is a war zone.
Trump has also named former ICE Director Tom Homan as his border czar. Homan will work with, but not under, Noem. He will answer directly to the president. Cristian Benavides, CBS News, West Palm Beach, Florida.
The state is warning of a recent real estate scam that's going around. Officials say crooks are sending out letters posing as government entities targeting individuals and businesses with false information to lure them into investing into non-existent properties. Now, one report said actor Jason Momoa was also impersonated to lure funds. The actor has since put out a statement saying that he is not associated with these schemes. DCCA asked the public to report these scams by calling 808-587-4272. Meanwhile, the daughter of a Marine killed in the Vietnam War is praising Hawaii scientists for helping bring her family closure. Courtney Kuby has the story.
On a clear day at Arlington National Cemetery, Captain Ronald Forrester was laid to rest, ending his daughter's 51-year journey to find her father after his plane disappeared over Vietnam when she was just 2 years old.
When Daddy was shot down, we were told not to give up hope.
But after years of waiting, Kareni's hope was shattered when all servicemen missing in action in Southeast Asia were declared presumed dead.
I remember being so confused because nobody could tell me what happened to my dad.
Captain Forrester's name was engraved on the walls at the National Cemetery of the Pacific, and a tormented Kareni began her own mission.
This kid wanted to know where her dad was.
But she wasn't the only one looking. The Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, or DPAA, was created to find and identify those lost in battle. Their scientists travel around the world, interviewing witnesses, excavating sites, and gathering any remains left behind.
Pocket knife, a key, toothbrush, some different things that may have been on the individual when they went missing.
All carefully transported back to their lab in Hawaii and tested against DNA samples, usually from next of kin.
There are over 80,000 unresolved cases from our past conflicts.
Dr. Deborah Prinzini is deputy director of the lab.
It's really humbling, and it's a really wonderful mission to be a part of.
In 1991, DPAA teams started searching a rice paddy where a U.S. plane may have crashed in 1972. The investigation continued for over 30 years until last December.
So you were able to identify both of the individuals who were lost in that crash?
We were.
Kareni was about to learn they finally found her father.
We got a match.
Her dad identified by a gas card with his name on it and a single bone fragment that matched his DNA.
It might be just one little bone, but it sure is a huge, long sought after answer.
Captain Ronald W. Forrester.
Kareni attended a ceremony in Hawaii, tapping a small rosette next to her dad's name on the memorial wall, signifying he'd been found. And thanking the men and women from DPAA who never stopped searching.
Thank you so much. Your work changed my life.
After a journey spanning 5 decades and crossing the world, Kareni brought her dad to his final resting place. Closure for a daughter who vowed never to give up. Courtney Kuby, NBC News, Honolulu, Hawaii.
Full forecast coming up. I'll talk about the advisory level northwest swell we're tracking tomorrow, and also breezy trade winds.
First Alert Weather with Drew Davis.
Oh, we're taking a look. Good evening, everybody. We've got your First Alert forecast here. I do want to give you a quick look at the headlines for what we're expecting this week. We've got large surf and strong winds out there this week. A large surf, of course, we already took a look in our First Alert first forecast, but I do want to give you a quick look at some of the numbers outside as we're going island by island for Wednesday morning. That swell that we're tracking tonight is going to arrive late Tuesday night through early Wednesday morning. North-facing shores on Kauai, Oahu, and Molokai will be around 15 to 20 feet, 14 to 18 feet here on the gathering place. West-facing shores around 12 to 16 feet and 10 to 14 feet as well. We'll start to see that energy moving eastward as we're going forward. Your First Alert checklist outside right now. Northeasterlies around 12 miles per hour in town. 82 degrees, a couple of clouds in the sky. Here's your First Alert checklist. What you need. You need shades, you need a surfboard, and you also not necessarily needing an umbrella unless you're over on windward sides or in the Melka areas. Our Pacific weather pattern, of course, we saw that near advisory level swell that moved in today. It's off to our southeast. The larger one, advisory level surf conditions on north and west facing shores late tonight throughout Wednesday. Throughout the early morning Wednesday, it's going to be over the western half of the state and moving eastward. We're also tracking breezy trade winds this week. We've got high pressure directly to the north of the island chain. The clockwise circulation of air around it's giving us these breezy east/northeasterlies, and this is going to get stronger as we go forward throughout this week. So gusty trades are expected after Wednesday. Some wind gusts could get closer to 30 to 40 miles per hour. You can take a look at our First Alert windcast as we're going throughout the rest of this afternoon. This is Tuesday at 1 p.m., so just coming up in just a little bit. We'll see 15 to 20 mile per hour sustained trade winds out there. A little bit weaker as the sun starts to set in the sky. And overnight, when we see wind speeds typically take a dip in speed, still between 10 to 15 miles per hour. That's around 11 p.m. Tomorrow, as you're going into work, still breezy out there between 10 to 15. Tomorrow afternoon, relatively breezy again. We could see some of those wind gusts again climbing closer to 30 miles per hour. So it's going to be breezy out there. And taking a look at your First Alert radar and satellite, we are seeing a couple of showers out there. You can see it's relatively dry across the state, but some small windward showers over Kauai. Quiet here on the gathering place. Some trade wind showers moving up near Kahuku and along the Ko'olau. Just had some rainfall in town, and Maui County and the Big Island are quiet as well. In your First Alert 7-day forecast, you'll notice two things. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are all lit up in red for those breezy conditions, and also our high temperatures are getting a little bit lower. It'll be around 84 to 85 degrees throughout the rest of this week, and our low temperatures in the mid-70s.
Well, coming up, we'll take you to Aiea, where crews are harvesting the centerpiece of this year's Honolulu City Lights celebration. Plus, here's Youngjin Ryan with what's coming up on Spotlight Now.
Today on Spotlight Now, we focus in on housing in the state of Hawaii.
We'll be talking to policy experts and leaders in banking. Join us 1 o'clock today on K5.
Welcome back. Hard to believe that the holidays are right around the corner, and today the city harvested their annual Christmas tree.
Crews headed out to Aiea this year to find the colossal tree. The 55-foot Cook pine tree will serve as the centerpiece for the Honolulu City Lights holiday celebration. Last year's tree was donated by Waialua's North Shore Stables. And finally, 3 beloved children's toys are being honored with a coveted spot in the National Toy Hall of Fame. 80s icons My Little Pony, the card game Phase 10, and Transformers action figures are this year's inductees. They were chosen based on their sustained popularity and ability to inspire creative play. It's the first year all of the inductees were created in the same decade. Do you have a favorite toy, Ashley?
Well, I'm an 80s kid. I definitely played with My Little Ponies. I'm not familiar with that card game, but definitely classics.
Yeah, mine is Pokemon. That's what
Oh yeah,
for me.
that's a big one.
Yeah.
All right, mahalo for watching. This is Now.